welcome everybody to another episode of Head to Head Sports. I'm your host, Brian Parker, and I am solo today. My co host, Randall Hargrove, could not make it in. So, y'all got to deal with just me. So, thanks for tuning in, and please join on our live chat, whether you are tuning in on Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, LinkedIn, Facebook Live, YouTube, Instagram as well. Please matter of fact, let me make sure I am pulling up on Instagram. I am indeed. All right, good deal. So if you're on any of those, please join in and let's make this show very fun and exciting. Happy December to everybody. We're in that home stretch of the end of 2024. The NFL season has been, man, it's been one of the craziest ones that I've seen so far. We've already gone through 13 weeks of the NFL. We'll talk about the games that did happen, whether it was the Thanksgiving Day games, whether it was the Black Friday game, whether it was the Sunday games, whether it was the Monday night game. Each of those days had some craziness going on that we definitely want to talk about. You can let me know in the chat what you felt like was the craziest game over the last week, I guess. But I will definitely cover a lot of those games as well. Before I get started, like I said, want to thank everybody that is tuned in. If you haven't already, please go to our YouTube channel under Empower, the letter N P O W E R TV, and check us out there. Please like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Whether or not you do go to the YouTube to do that, wherever you're tuning in from, please, please, please share. We definitely always appreciate that. It helps us grow or organically and things like that. So more and more people can learn about this show as well as some of the other shows that we do offer. Also, too, a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, "Hey, Brian, you do the NFL and everything, and it's great. We love the show and everything else. But hey, you thought about doing baseball or the NBA or college football or anything like that?" The short answer is yes. The bigger answer is, "Hey, I can't do it." I'm going to be honest with you. Between having a full time job, being a real estate agent, and doing a whole lot of other things, it takes a lot to be able to do then this show too. So, but what I would love to be able to do is if you are somebody that is passionate about sports that would love to host your own show, never thought about it and said, "Hey, you know what? I kind of like to learn how Brian and Randall do what they do and those kind of things." Reach out to me and let's talk about it. If you are interested in seriously hosting your own show, it does air. It will air on Empower though, but it will go out to potentially millions of people as Roku has over 150 million users, as well as Amazon Fire TV has well over 150 million users. YouTube has its own base as well. So it does get a lot of legs and things like that. So it is something that you can grow from. If it's something that you would consider doing, or you want to think about it, or you want to get a little bit more information about it, send me a DM or reach out to me via email at theparkermedia@gmail.com. Would love to be able to do that. Hey, we got to help each other. And look, I don't want to be a one man network anyway. So if we can have partners that we can have that will be able to host shows and want to put them on the network, as long as they align with our core and values, we have absolutely no problem putting that into consideration. So putting that out there to you, maybe you don't have enough content for your own TV channel, but maybe you want to partner with one that already exists and already has some of the infrastructure already out there for you to be able to put your show live and on the air. Would love to certainly do that. If you feel more comfortable recording the show, you can do that too. We can talk about that. If live may not be what you want to do, the only thing with recording is you got to do a little bit more editing and stuff like that. But hey, to each their own. Anyway, we also sit there and like to partner with entrepreneurs, business leaders, folks that have a product, good, or service that they want to get out in front of people. If you would like to do that, reach out to me again at theparkermedia at gmail.com. This is an ad right here that I cut for my brother Jermaine, and I'm a realtor with him for Jermaine Parker Realty. Check this out. This is how it goes.
Oh, that's gotta hurt!
That does gotta hurt because I pushed the wrong damn button. All right, here it goes right here. I'm sorry, y'all. Buying a home is one of the biggest decisions that you'll make. Here at Jermaine Parker Realty, we're here to help you navigate through that process. We know that a home is more than just a place to live. It creates memories. Here at Jermaine Parker Realty, we're here to help. Give us a call and let us get started on your journey. All right. Now, that's an example of the commercials that we can cut. Or if there's just a read that you want us to be able to do with still shots, we can certainly do that as well. Again, one more time, the parkermedia@gmail.com. Reach out to us for that. All right, y'all, let's get into it. We had a crazy week of the NFL, some really, really good games. I'm going to start with one that would not have a week ago made me think that it would be something that I would spend any decent amount of time talking about. And that was our Monday night football game where the Cleveland Browns went to Mile High Stadium to face the Denver Broncos. On paper, that just did not sound like it was going to be that sexy of a matchup. We had Jameis Winston on one side, who's come in admirably, I will say, for Deshaun Watson, who went down, and the rookie Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos, who has been ascending of late, even ascending to the point where Jaden Daniels is no more the clear-cut favorite for the NFL Rookie of the Year award because of the progression that Bo Nix has had. And I'll be honest with you, I've kind of seen this over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Bo Nix kind of gives you a lot of good stuff to look at, but he does make some of those rookie mistakes that you would expect from a rookie that started from day one. Didn't come in halfway through the season, anything like that. They started him out, so you're going to take those lumps with a rookie and everything else. Matter of fact, I just want to change one little. Oh Lord, what do I got going on over here? I got to change one little thing uh on my thing here. So hold on a second. I'm sorry. And Phil, there we go. I just wanted to pull up the standings and everything as I talk about where a lot of these teams are. The Denver Broncos actually ended up winning that game, y'all, and it was one heck of a game. Bo Nix put on a show, but I want to talk a second about Jameis Winston, y'all. Everybody that knows Jameis came out of Florida State, started at Tampa, and he was known for putting up a lot of yards. But he was also known for throwing a lot of interceptions. Jameis has always been interception prone. Um, but then once Tampa decided to move on with Tom Brady, Jameis goes to New Orleans, backs up Drew Brees, plays a couple of games when Drew gets hurt, things like that. Um, and James actually did a pretty good job there to a point where he ended up on Cleveland's radar. And I will say this, y'all. The Deshaun Watson experiment for Cleveland has been a utter fail. They paid him a whole lot of guaranteed money to be the guy because of what they saw him do in Houston, and they have not seen that guy on their field at all over the last 3 years. I don't know if they will ever see that guy. But what I can see is the way this team plays when he's under center and when Jameis Winston is under center. This team loves Jameis. This team plays for Jameis. When I saw Deshaun Watson putting up gaudy numbers, throwing for 110 yards for a whole game, not being able to get the ball more than 5 yards down the field. And you're wondering, okay, is it the quarterback? Is it he just doesn't have good receivers? What's going on? And early on, I was skeptical about it being any other position than the quarterback, only because last year, Joe Flacco, when Deshaun got hurt, led this team to the playoffs last year. And he was putting up crazy numbers. So it was obvious that the players were there. Well, guess what? When Watson went down, the same players were still on the team. But Jameis gets a lot more out of them. Now, a couple of things off the bat. Jameis Winston threw for 497 yards, which is absolutely incredible. Winston won't be the starter next year. He's putting up points, but he's making it worse throwing interceptions. Now your defense has to work harder. That's true, Anthony, and thanks for joining, buddy. Um, he won't be the starter, but I'll argue with you. Some team is going to sit there and work with him on cutting those turnovers down. But you can't argue with the fact that this dude put up 497 yards. Now, look, he threw the ball 58 times, but he connected on 34 of them. And he could have had a couple other ones, but they got dropped. Jerry Judy alone had 235 yards receiving. Jerry Judy was discarded by the Denver Broncos. So, of course, he had a little bit of an axe to grind. But you can't minimize the fact that Jameis put up almost 500 yards of offense. Hell, Bo Nix wasn't no sleeper either. He put up 294. So between the both of them, you got well over almost 800 yards of offense. But you see the way Jameis can engage with his team, and there's something to be said for that. That, Anthony, will make him a commodity. I feel like for teams that may be looking for that backup quarterback. Is Jameis going to be a starter? No. Um, would he be a serviceable backup? Absolutely. Would I take him as Bryce Young's backup? Of course. He shows he's not afraid. You know, the thing about throwing interceptions, and some of the interceptions do make you scratch your head, but he's not afraid to put the ball out there. The one thing that you would say about Deshaun Watson was he was so gun shy that he would not throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. You're not going to win a whole lot of games like that. Nobody gave you $230 million guaranteed to throw the ball just 5 yards down the field. So Jameis Winston, who doesn't make any type of money close to what Deshaun Watson got, is playing at a higher level. If I ever saw Deshaun Watson throw the ball 58 times, I guarantee you he wouldn't hit 34 of them like Jameis did. And I guarantee you if he threw 58 times, he probably throw more interceptions. Jameis ended up throwing three. You could argue that he really started trying to force it once they got behind at the end of the game, and that last one was probably more of a result of that. But I just wanted to speak on the fact that Cleveland put a lot of money into Deshaun Watson, and it took Deshaun getting hurt for them to be able to see that Deshaun was not the better quarterback on the team. Um, Unfortunately, they kept playing him because they had to pay him. So they prioritized who they paid over who gave the team the best chance to win. That's a shame. Because Anthony, you got to remember too, Cleveland, when they were 2-8, beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he has shown the ability, and he was the reason they won that game. He was. He ain't turned the ball over like that. He played in that snow. He extended plays. He ran for yards. He jumped up in the air to get extra yards. He sacrificed his body. and he did a lot of things. So yeah, you can look at the 3 interceptions in this game, but I'm telling you that this brother cares. His team believes in him. He's not the most articulate person, but they understand him and they get him and they love him. And unfortunately, he's probably more likely on a 1 year loan because he's played himself into a position where either if Cleveland does re-sign him, they're going to have to pay him some money, which I recommend that they do because I think he needs a place where he can kind of pitch his tent and thrive and everything else. Is he your long-term solution? No. But are they going to be in a position where they'll be able to get a higher round draft pick? Maybe. We'll see. They with their record, most likely they will be up there. But again, even if you get that top draft pick or a top 10, I'm going to argue that not every top 10 pick is ready to start on day one, nor should they. I think Caleb Williams would have benefited more by sitting. Jaden Daniels seems to be a little bit up and down, but he seemed to do okay starting from the gate. CJ Stroud seemed to do okay starting from the gate. Bryce Young probably needed to sit an entire year because now you see him stringing together a few good performances. And it only came after he got benched for a few games. Um, Everyone that gets drafted, regardless of what you did in college, it doesn't translate always to the NFL for everybody where, you know, it, it's just seamless. For a lot of them, there's going to be some bumps along the way. Some people argue, well, Brian, the only way they're going to learn is if you throw them out there. That's bullcrap. You can do a lot of learning by looking and watching. I'm sure if you ever learned how to swim, you didn't go to the swimming pool and jump in 12 feet of water on your first damn day. I'm pretty sure you did some watching, some looking. That's why you still alive. Now, you could be extraordinary, and maybe when you were 4 years old, your parents took you to the pool, and you said, "F that baby pool. I'm going into that 12 feet. I'll see y'all in a little bit." Maybe you did do that. But I think a lot of people have to get acclimated first. And sometimes that means starting in a little bit shallow water. Sometimes it's just observing, watching, seeing what people do, how they do it, and then taking that information. And then when you're in that situation, use it. Is there value to actual playtime? Absolutely. Does that mean you have to start week one with your non-stained jersey on? No, you don't have to do that. Um, do we need to see you perform on the field sooner than later? Yes, because as soon as you sign a rookie, especially a first round pick, the clock is ticking. That part is true. And it's because they have teams like want to be able to evaluate them because you have to, at some point, decide if this is going to be your guy so that you can sign them to the second contract. So you do need to be able to evaluate them. But does that mean that they have to start week one? No, I don't think so. I think that a lot of teams put pressure on the fact that, well, we drafted them very high, so we got to start them. Sometimes I think it's more of the fact that the organization is thinking more about putting butts in the seats than the overall success of the team. Prioritizing again money and fans. What? Oh, the fans are going to want this. The fans are going to want that. Man, f them fans. Don't sit there and listen to those fans like that. Fans are going to sit there and come and go a lot of times, but the real fans will understand. Hey, we're trying to build something over a long period of time. So just because you draft a rookie with the first through the 10th pick does not mean that they need to play on day one. So what could Jameis Winston do? He could be that bridge. He could be that guy that goes out there and teaches the young guy how to be a pro. The quarterback is the most position on a team, is the most important position on a team. So everything goes through him. When they're on the field and they're in the huddle, he's the only one with the helmet on that's getting the plays in from the sideline. You need somebody that can manage that, that can look up at those guys that are sitting in the huddle around him and instill that sense of belief in them that we're gonna make this play. I got y'all. Y'all go out, you run that route. I'm gonna get that ball to you on time, and we're gonna sit there and go down this field. They gotta believe that. You don't need to be a young rookie out there looking like a deer in headlights, and the players looking at you like, man, man, this dude ain't gonna do that. You know, you need them to really believe it so that they go all out for you. So a lot of times I think rookies get set up to fail because a lot of pressure gets put on them to have to perform early. And a lot of them are just not ready for it. It's not an indictment on them if they're not ready on day one. That's okay. That should be okay. I don't know when it got to be unpopular to let rookies sit and learn. Oh man, you draft them that high, they gotta be day one starter. That's bullcrap. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 4 years. Now he is considered a top 10 quarterback. He sat. Okay. So CJ Stroud performed well last year. He's regressed a little this year. Some of it is him. Some of it is the fact that he's had a lot of his weapons injured at different times of the year, not playing together and things like that. But I've watched him. He's regressed a little bit. Um, does that mean that he should have sat out? No, but it does mean that you're not going to get the best out of these guys consistently the first couple of games. They're going to have to work into that groove. And when you're a rookie, the other teams have no film on you. They can't necessarily go by what you did in college because college offenses a lot of times are set up differently than pro style offenses and stuff like that. So they can't always necessarily predict what you'll do in a situation because it may be a different formation. Maybe in college you were under center a lot of times, or actually it's quite the reverse. In college, a lot of times you're in the shotgun a lot. They like to spread offense, put you in the shotgun, a lot of mobile quarterbacks benefit from the RPO. It's better for the court. It's easier for the quarterback to determine if they're going to be in the RPO, which is a run pass option, because then they can see what the defense is doing and decide whether to pull the ball back away from the running back and take off with it and run. It's not always the best in the NFL because a lot of times you like to be up under the center because then the defense can't really see if the running back still has the ball. All they know is he came up to get it. They're assuming he has it. But if you have a mobile quarterback, they still have to hesitate just enough to make sure that he didn't pull it back, and it can give you a little bit of extra time. But then it also requires your offensive line to hold strong and make sure nobody gets through while you're doing that. So it's a little bit of different from college. And depending on how their games are, it works differently. CJ, in my opinion, did better than Bryce because CJ was taller to see a lot more things through the pocket. Bryce's strength is that because he's smaller, he has to get that ball out a lot faster than most. And he has to be able to do that by trusting what he sees in front of him with his passing lanes. Because if he's a second off, he's going to get intercepted. Jaden Daniels the same way because he's such a run threat, and you've already got dynamic runners, whether it's Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, uh, those guys back there. He's able to then make teams hesitate because they have to watch the run. And then he's got uh, Noah Brown. He's got Diami. He's got Terry McLaurin out there that can also catch the ball. He's got Zach Ertz out there that can catch the ball. So he's got pass options as well. So you can't just commit to the receivers because they can run the ball. You can't just commit to the run because he can pass the ball. That's what's made Jaden Daniels very, very successful this year. So a lot of those things, but defenses can get a little interesting. They can do things a lot of times that will confuse a rookie, give them different looks in pre-snap. They'll think that that's what's coming, and then change it up once the ball is snapped to try to confuse them, get them to throw into uh, a tighter coverage or have play a too high safety when they thought they were playing zone or man to man, and then that safety drops down and picks the ball off or something like that. So a lot of things can happen. But just to cap on the Denver game, I think that that was one of the most entertaining Monday night games. I thought that the NFL totally missed on that. They got lucky, I think. I think they did miss because nobody would have thought Cleveland and Denver would have been that much of a game to want to watch, and it was a very watchable, entertaining game. I must say, it was very, very interesting to see. They put on a great game, and kudos to the both of them. Cleveland, I don't know if they're mathematically out just yet, but more than likely they're not going to go to the playoffs because they're not going to be in the wild card race. And we'll talk about that in just a second too, about who's kind of in right now and who's on the outside looking in and who doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of making it to the playoffs this year. The next game before that happened before the Browns and the Broncos, well, it was what we kind of expected. The Sunday night, I'm sorry, was it the Sunday night game between the Bills and the 49ers. Again, this was a game played in a whole lot of snow. We already knew coming in San Francisco is not the same San Francisco of the last 4 years. They've been nicked, they've been beaten up, and they're just not the same team right now. And we pretty much predicted, me and Randall did, that this game was going to pretty much be a blowout. That Buffalo, even though if they start slow, it didn't matter. They were going to find a way to start piling up a bunch of points. Josh Allen did Josh Allen things. He threw for a touchdown. Yeah, Anthony, but I don't agree with it. He was 13 of 17, which means he was efficient throwing when he did throw. 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. I get all of that. He threw for a touchdown. He ran for a touchdown. He received a touchdown. Now the reception was because Amari Cooper was falling and threw a lateral back to him, and then he ran it in, so that counted as a reception. But and um that only added to the case for him to be the MVP. I still believe that Saquon Barkley is the MVP. I just do. Now it's not because I'm an Eagles fan. It's because I've seen what happens when this team does not involve Saquon in the offense. I've seen what happens when Saquon just totally wears the opposing team down because of the runs he makes, the vision he has, the jump cuts, and when he hits that hole, he's gone. It is okay. Why is it a quarterback award? Why is it that the most valuable player has to be a quarterback? Why? Is it a quarterback award because it almost always goes to a quarterback? My question is, who says who? Who says it's a quarterback award? Have that person that because I guess it's the Associated Press that does the voting. Get one of them on the record to say it's a quarterback award. And then that way we never ever have to sit there and consider a defensive player, a running back, or any other position for the award. Now, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be a quarterback award because the quarterback touches the ball. Exactly, and I agree with that. The quarterback touches the ball every single snap, unless you run the wildcat to a running back or something. Quarterback touches the ball every time. But so what? A lot of times, like you brought up Cooper Cup. Cup was a triple crown, didn't get it. Hill passed the leading yards last year, didn't get it. I think both of them should have got it. It doesn't have to be now. What they'll say is with Brian, who threw the ball to Cooper Cup. It was Stafford. Well, yes, but a lot of times those numbers that that quarterback gets from that receiver is because of what the receiver did after he caught the ball. For example, Jalen Hurts hands the ball off to Saquon Barkley. Well, he hands it off to him 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So when Saquon ends up running for, I don't know, 155 yards, he did that from in the backfield. He had to cross the line of scrimmage for the yards to start counting. When receivers catch the ball, a lot of times they may turn a 8-yard catch into a 70-yard touchdown. Now, is that the quarterback that made him get those other 62 yards? Or was it the player and maybe some good downfield blocking that freed him up for those additional 62 yards? The yak. Who gets credit for the yak? I would say it's the receiver. But they're not going to split it up that way, and I don't expect them to. But common sense will get you to understand that the quarterback, yes, touches the ball, the quarterback gets the ball to the receivers, but it should not just always be a quarterback award by default. Otherwise, you don't need an MVP, you need a most valuable quarterback. Because then that's what you're saying. Not who's the most valuable player, who's the best quarterback this year. If you want to have a best quarterback award, create that. But the most valuable player is when you take this guy off of this team is not the same. Now, yes, if you take Josh Allen off the Buffalo Bills, that would drastically change the Buffalo Bills. They most likely would not still be in a position to grab the number one seed should Kansas City stumble. But I could say the same thing about Saquon. You take Saquon off that team, even though you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, that is not the same team. You take I was gonna say you take Derrick Henry away from the Ravens. I kind of think that they could still do the same things. I think he just gives them an extra layer. Some guys are great have tos, but they're not valuable in a way that if you take them off the team, it just totally changes the whole makeup of that team. Micah Parsons is a guy like that. As much as I don't like the Cowboys, y'all know I don't like the Cowboys. Micah Parsons is that guy. When he was out injured, that was a totally different looking team than when he came back. Watt for Pittsburgh is the same way. When Watt is not playing and he's on a sideline, that defense is totally different. You can say the same thing about Bosa. You can say the same thing about uh oh gosh, now I'm forgetting his name. My man with the Raiders. Um, a lot of guys, they're MVPs, but then you kind of have to look at them and go, okay, which one is the most? So I'm not trying to take anything away from Josh Allen. Josh Allen came into the season with a lot of question marks because the running game was going to change. Stephon Diggs was gone. What did that mean for them? Had their window closed. Both me and Randall had said, hey, windows don't stay open that long, and Buffalo has been right there for quite some time. They're going to start getting older. They're going to have to start losing players because they can't re-sign everybody. Your window is going to start to close. And Josh Allen and the Bills, to their credit, have continued to keep that window open. So I give them all the credit. But again, they beat up on a opponent that they should have beat up on. In all honesty, if it wasn't for the snow, they should have got more than 35 points. And they probably would have. But I don't think beating up on the 49ers says as much about the Bills as it does about the current state of the 49ers. I don't think that was a statement game at all. If you're looking for proof that's not going to be the game to prove that Josh Allen is the MVP. I'm sorry, it isn't. Now, if you want to go back and point to some other games that he's helped win the game, absolutely. That's the other thing too. just because you're the quarterback doesn't mean that you're the most valuable player. We've seen teams win where the quarterback did very little and the team won because of other people on the team. I think about the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens didn't win games because of Trent Dilfer. They won games because of their defense. That's unquestionable. Now you can't give everybody on the defense the MVP, but I bet you that for that team, there was a defensive player that was the MVP. Probably Ray Lewis, maybe Terrell Suggs. But it definitely wasn't Trent Dilfer. Nobody's going to say that. That's why I said you just can't inherently say just because uh, a team has a quarterback that the quarterback is the most valuable player on the team. That's bullcrap. You know, Trent Dilfer was the reason that they came up with the term game manager, and now everybody hates the term game manager. That's what the hell he was, and he knew that. Hey, he got a ring from it, but he ain't going to Canton anytime soon, which means never. So the you can't just say it's a quarterback award. I know that that's what the media frames it to be. That's not what it should be. Because that's not what the award says. It says most valuable player. Doesn't say most valuable player by position. Now, if you want to have a offensive MVP but then they also have offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year. You know why they have that? Because of what you said, Anthony, is because they inherently going to give the MVP to a quarterback. So we got to have an offensive player of the year and a defensive player of the year because the ones that should have got the MVP, well, we just gonna sit there and give them the OPY and the DPY, uh, as a secondary award. Meaning that Christian McCaffrey, to me, last year should have been the most valuable player. Well, they gave him offensive player of the year. So I knew it came between Hill and McCaffrey. I was more McCaffrey because of the consistency of what he has to do in the backfield, of how they line him up, of the fact that he overcame a lot of injuries to be able to do what he did. I think that alone would have gotten him the MVP, but it got him enough for the offensive player of the year. So I think he should have gotten both, honestly. Um, and that's okay to do that, but for some reason, the league just wants to make the MVP more quarterback based. So we had that game. The game that I thought should have been the Sunday night game was the Eagles Ravens game. Did it live up to the hype? I think so. Um, Now the Eagles did end up winning that game 24-19, which is a 5-point margin. Even though I'm an Eagles fan, I do understand that if Justin Tucker had hit everything that he kicked, which would have been 7 points, the game would have been differently. That doesn't mean that they would have lost the game. It could have changed the complexity of the game, certain things that you would have called that you didn't have to call, and things like that. But I do know that, man, those 7 points could have come in handy for Justin Tucker and for the Baltimore Ravens. But again, here's another thing. So the Eagles win the game. Jalen Hurts threw the ball 19 times, hit on 11 of them, threw for 118 yards and a touchdown. He didn't have to do a lot. Saquon did a lot of the heavy lifting, 23 carries for 107 yards. But when you look at it, guys, the Ravens had over 120 yards more than the Eagles. The Eagles' total yardage, one of the lowest, 252. The Ravens had 372 total yards. They had more passing yards and they had more rushing yards, and they still lost. The Eagles had more penalties. Um, the Ravens had the ball 7 minutes longer. So if I read through all those stats, it would look like the Ravens would have won that game, and they didn't. So it was all because of the ground game and what Saquon Barkley was able to do in that game. That's why he was the MVP on Sunday for at least for the Eagles. But that was I think that was actually a pretty good game too. A lot of good explosive plays in it. Another game that was actually Ravens couldn't stop one person. Well, that's true, and they've had this issue. Actually, their biggest issue all year has been being able to stop passes. Normally they've been able to clog up and stop the run, but they couldn't stop this one dude. And you're absolutely right, Anthony. It came down; they couldn't stop one person. And think about it. They couldn't stop AJ Brown either. And AJ Brown had a decent game, even with Devontae Smith being out of this game. That's the crazy part. Is that if Devontae had been in the game, I think it would have been even worse. I think the Eagles would have blown them out in the second half. The thing about the Eagles is, and the thing that scares you about the Eagles, they always start off slow. And they got down 9-0 in this game before something clicked inside of them, and then they started coming on. So that is a worry. I don't think that that will serve them well in the playoffs. They need to get to quicker starts and things like that. And he says, and Lamar, please stop throwing on the run. Your accuracy is not that good. LOL. Yeah, that's and Anthony. Before I move on to my next topic too, we got to get to the point where, or our young black mobile quarterbacks got to get to this point where they're not trying to prove week in and week out, especially nationally televised games, that they're more than just a running quarterback. We know you're more than just a running quarterback, but there's always going to be people that are going to see you that way. And it doesn't matter if you throw 50 times or 19 times, they're going to say that your gift is your legs, and that's really all that you are. And you can't change your game up to try to satisfy a small sample of people. Play your game. If your team needs you to run certain games, run. If your team benefits from you throwing, or if it's a combination of the two, do what your team needs you to do on any given Sunday to win a game. Not sit there and worry about what they're going to say on social media. And the reason I bring that up is I saw Lamar do that last year. All through the season, he ran that team to the playoffs. Goes to the playoffs and decides he wants to just sit back and be a damn pocket passer the whole game, even when he was throwing in the triple coverages and throwing interceptions. Made absolutely no sense. Do what got you there, bro. Don't read no press clips and press clippings and headlines and narratives and things like that. Play your game and be yourself. And that was so surprising because Lamar is that cat where he will just kind of beat to his own drum. So it was kind of weird because you could tell that he had internalized the narrative that he can't win a game throwing from the pocket, and he tried to prove people wrong. You know how you prove people wrong, Lamar? In February, when you hold the Lombardi Trophy in your hand, that's your ultimate fu to people. That's all you got to do. You ain't got to do nothing else. You sat there and bet on yourself when you came to the NFL because everybody wanted you to become a running back or a receiver. And you said, no, I'm a quarterback. And you held to your guns then, hold to your guns now. Same thing for Jalen. People are always going to look at you as a runner, but you have proven that you can pass. But just because you've proven that you can pass doesn't mean that you always need to. If there's a bunch of green grass in front of you and the defense has turned their backs to you, you take your ass off and run. Uh, what I say, Lamar not trying, no ring with the Ravens. What do you mean? You don't think he's trying to win a ring? I think Lamar's trying to win a ring. I just think that Lamar puts a lot more pressure on himself than he needs to. That franchise without Lamar Jackson is totally different. The Ravens aren't even a topic of conversation if Lamar Jackson isn't their quarterback. Yeah, I figured you meant that he's not going to get a ring with the Ravens. But that could be for a lot of different reasons, Anthony. It could be kind of like how Carl Malone wasn't never going to get a ring because he would always have to go through the Bulls, or Patrick Ewing would always have to go through the Bulls. And as long as Michael Jordan was going to be there, my career coincides with his. There's a good chance I'm not going to get a ring, no matter how good I am, no matter how good of a season I have individually and stuff like that. Lamar still would have to go through Kansas City or Buffalo, and no matter how good they've been, maybe this year, if Kansas City was the only thing in front of them, would they have a chance of winning? But I still trust Andy Reid more than I trust John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. Right now, it's to me, it's the Bills. Right now, even if the Bills don't get the number one seed from Kansas City and they end up with the second seed, it's going to be hard to take the Bills out. So if you're the Ravens, the Steelers, any of these other teams that are going to make it to the playoffs, you still got to go through Kansas City and Buffalo, and neither one of them are going to be easy. Kansas City maybe a little bit more than they normally are, but I still think that this is a different team when playoffs come around. I think right now they're just doing what they got to do before they can really get their complement of players back. You know, Pacheco's missed a lot of time, and they brought in Kareem Hunt, and he kind of held it down. And they still have a good backfield with P. Ryan and Steele, and they're still figuring out their receivers. But Kelsey is getting more and more dominant every week. D Hop is coming into the fold, and by playoff time, him and Mahomes are going to have that chemistry right. So I think they're just kind of building the plane while it's in the air. They're working on things. They didn't land the plane. They just sitting there building it while they're flying. And by the time the playoffs come, I think that plane gonna be ready to go. I don't know if it's gonna be ready enough to overcome Buffalo this time. Only way they Buffalo loses to them is if Buffalo shoots themselves in the foot this time, I believe. So I think the Ravens have a lot of reasons why they are not going to get a ring, and I think it's kind of that whole idea that they're just in a. It's just timing. You know, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. If it had been another time, could they be a little bit more dominant in the conference? Probably. But when you got Kansas City and Buffalo in your conference year after year, that's very hard. It don't matter how good of a regular season record you have, it's going to be hard to get through them. Um, I tell y'all a game that really surprised me. It was my hometown Carolina Panthers because me and Randall both said that, hey, there's an opportunity they can win this game. And this is the second game in a row that this game came down to the final play. 2 weeks ago, it was Kansas City kicking the last second field goal to escape with a win against the Panthers. And in this game against the Buccaneers, Carolina had the lead. The Bucks tied it up late to force it into overtime. The Bucks had the ball first, couldn't miss the field goal. The Panthers get the ball, start on their drive. Chuba Hubbard coughs up the ball. Bucks get the ball back, gain a lot of yards on that drive, and then they kick the field goal and win the game. Even so, Bryce Young once again he almost put up 300 yards, which for Bryce Young in a game, there's been times when you could go 6 games combined and he didn't put up 300 yards. I'm not kidding. Um, he threw no picks. He kept the ball out of harm's way. He threw a touchdown. He actually ran for some yards too. He took off and trusted that he could get some of those yards on the ground. He ran 3 times for 17 yards. Nothing explosive, but those were opportunistic runs, not runs where we're used to seeing him have to run for his life. Actually, I've really rarely seen him run for his life. Most of the time, he just stands back there and takes sacks. He took fewer sacks. He looked like a more complete guy. And I can't again stress that I believe a lot of that resurgence came as a result of sitting him down for a little bit and making him take a breath and a beat. He wasn't going to bench himself. He was just going to sit there and play through it. And sometimes you have to save these young guys for them from themselves. And I think that's exactly what Dave Canales and the rest of that team did by sitting them down long enough to get them to realize, hey, don't nobody give a damn that you were the number one pick. You're gonna have to come out on this field every single day, every single game, and bring 100%. That's what your teammates expect of you. So nobody cares. Nobody's going to give you a pass. The refs aren't going to give you better calls because you're the number one pick. You're going to have to come out here and you're going to have to play. And I think he's kind of stepped up to that. So I'll give him credit. Do I still think he's a bust? Yes. As of right now, and I'll tell you why. His play still has not necessarily made the players around him better. They were already what they were. He just couldn't find them in that space. But has he taken what they were and elevated it? No, not yet. Does he have the potential to do it? I think so. And which is a big change for me because if you'd asked me 8 weeks ago, do the Carolina Panthers need to draft a quarterback with their first round pick? I would have said absolutely. But I think now they could bring in a seasoned veteran. I don't think it's going to be Andy Dalton next year. Maybe it's Jameis Winston, but they could bring in a seasoned veteran in the event that if he gets hurt, that you have somebody to go to. I don't think you have to overreach and get a quarterback with that pick because all you're going to do is start over. You're starting the clock over. But if you haven't fixed all of the other fundamental issues, whether it's still shoring up, you got to shore up your run defense and your pass defense a little bit more. Stop giving up so many points um, because people can throw on you and people can run on you. That's what you really got to focus on, not so much your quarterback right now. Stop trying to go overreach for receivers too. Is one of the biggest things I would tell them. We had the Cardinals that played the Vikings. Cardinals looked like that they were in control of that game, but the Vikings just kept nudging away, nudging away, nudging away. Ended up winning that game 23-22. Sam Darnold again, I would say most improved player. Uh, just sat there, cool, calm, and collective. 21-31, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Uh, Shocking thing was he was also the leading rusher with 22 yards rushing. So they didn't put a lot on the ground, but they still got the win. Ended up at 10-2. So congratulations to them. Um, I wish Justin Jefferson would have caught a pass because I had him on a parlay to get a touchdown. So I mean, I'm sorry, not get a pass. He did get a pass. He got 9 of them for 99 yards or something like that, but he didn't get a touchdown. So that sucked a little bit. We had the Rams beat the Saints 21-14. This again was a game that went back and forth. Uh, Carr played a decent game, but went 24 of 37 for 184 yards. A lot of short passes. Stafford didn't do much better, 14 of 24 for 183. Stafford passed for 2 touchdowns. We saw Carr pass for 1. Kyron Williams and Alvin Kamara proved to be the difference in those games by rushing for both over 100 yards in that game. San Francisco, LA, that helped improve them to 6-6. The New Orleans Saints are 4-8. We'll talk about in a second where that puts them in the division because they're still actually in it. As sad as that is. You also had the Steelers and the Bengals. Now, this was a game for the ages. I really think Sierra must have broke Russell Wilson off with a little something, something because he turned back the hands of time. We saw not Denver's version of Russell Wilson. Hell, we saw Seattle's version of Russell Wilson, where he went 29 of 38. Old ass Russell Wilson threw the ball 38 times for 414 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 1 pick. Russell Wilson threw the ball for 414 yards. Joe Burrow threw for 309 yards. And again, y'all, the Bengals too. It really looks like uh, what's let the Bengals down more than anything is their defense. They can't stop a cold right now. They just can't do anything from a defensive side. So Burrow puts up these lofty numbers, and they still end up with a loss, and that's just crazy. Both threw for 3 touchdowns and a pick. Najee Harris. I was texting Randall, who knew Najee Harris was a receiver. Najee had 75 yards rushing, but from the receiving standpoint, Najee had 54 yards receiving. So he was catching passes. He caught 6 of them. Jalen Warren did the same thing. He's a running back, but he caught 4 receptions for 55 yards. Uh, didn't run as much in the run game, but definitely was involved more in the passing game. So Russell Wilson found 10 different receivers in this game. Pickens only caught 3, but had the most yards. But Fryermuth, the tight end, caught 6 to tie himself with Najee. Uh, both are non-receivers, but he used them as receivers. So Russell Wilson had himself a day. Beat up on the Bengals. The score got a little bit closer at the end, but they were well on their way before the score started getting closer to really just demolishing the Cincinnati Bengals. So that was an interesting game. The Commanders and the Titans was not interesting. It was a blowout. The score was a lot closer than it was, even at 42-19. The Commanders were having their way. At halftime, it was already 28-7. It was pitiful. Um, and they just had no answer for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, 25 of 30. He only missed 5, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Will Levis had a good throwing game, 18 to 37 for 212. He had a couple of long throws, but Terry McLaurin got loose in this game. Brian Robinson ran for over 100 yards, and Washington was off to the races. Washington continuing to win continues to put pressure on Philadelphia to continue to win as they're both still in the fight for uh, winning the NFC East. So that's what they're playing for. You had the Jets lose another game that they were in control of to an extent. At halftime, they were up 21-16, and they never scored again. The the Seahawks went on to score 10 more points and win that game 26-21, totally shutting down Aaron Rodgers, who threw a pick in the end zone that got ran back for a pick 6. Um, Untimely pick. Him and Devontae Adams probably had their best game together, but it still just wasn't enough. And it still just leaves people to wonder what's wrong with the Jets. Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back for another year? Here's my forecast. Aaron Rodgers is done this year because the Jets are not going to want him. Now, I heard some pundits, and this was so funny. Some pundits say that, well, Aaron Rodgers, if he goes to another team next year, like he's going to have to submit, meaning he's going to have to play the offense that the coach wants him to play. He can't play all that hero ball where he's trying to sling the ball around because he's not that dude anymore. He's going to have to sit there and rely on the running game and this and that and the other and good defense and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute. Aaron Rodgers just turned 41 years old. If you're not bringing Aaron Rodgers in to be the guy that he was, and you just need him to basically hand the ball off and make a good throw here and there, why do you need Aaron Rodgers? Because that sounds like somebody named Jameis Winston, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. Why Aaron Rodgers? Hell, Mac Jones. If you don't need Aaron to be Aaron anymore, then why do you need Aaron? Because Aaron Rodgers, without all the specialness, are those guys. You know, if you don't need Mariah Carey to hit the high note, you can go get anybody else to sing the songs. If you don't need Beyonce's voice, you can get anybody to sing the song. Well, Beyonce, we just need you to sing in this one key. Well, hell, if all you need me to do is sing in this one key, go get somebody else, and that's all they do. You don't need me. I'm special. And if I'm not special anymore, you don't really need me. You need a jag, just a guy. So if Aaron is now just a guy, you really want to pay $60 million a year for a jag? No. And what team is going to say, hey, we're going to take this old dog and try to teach him new tricks? Aaron Rodgers, y'all, is who he is. He has to be the dude. And if you sit there and you try to take the ball out of his hands and tell him he's not the dude, well, good luck with that. That's not going to work out too well for you. I'll go ahead and spare you the details. It ain't going to work out well for you because he's not that guy. He's not wired that way. That's just not who he is. I'm not giving Rodgers a new big deal in New York. I'm not either. It failed. You already gave him $60 million. You gave Aaron Rodgers $60 million for that crap that he's been putting out on the field. And you got to pay him that money. Who is going to sit there, look at the tape of Aaron Rodgers and say, I mean, let's put it in perspective. Will Levis. Hold on, let me go through this. Aaron Rodgers threw for 185 yards on Sunday. Bryce Young threw for 297. Jameis Winston threw for 414. Will Levis threw for over 300 something yards. Caleb threw for 256. Jared Goff threw for 221. Let me see who else we got here that makes it crazy. Damn, Drew Lock threw for 178. Only what, 7 yards less than Aaron. Cooper Rush threw for 195. 10 more than Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers isn't being Aaron Rodgers and not doing special things, he's them at a lower price tag. So why the hell would you sign him when you could get somebody else? Hell, Daniel Jones would be a better option for you now. Just saying. Justin Fields would be a better option for you right now. Just saying. There's so many better, younger, cheaper options than bringing a 42-year-old next year quarterback onto your team and expect him to be the same guy he was 12, 13 years ago. Father Time is undefeated. And a lot of times it's better for you to walk out on your own terms for you to get embarrassed out of a situation, which is really where he pretty much is at this point. He's not going to make things better by coming back. He's going to make things worse. Because next year, if he came back, some team was dumb enough to play him, and he starts out next year the way that he's been playing this year, he's going to get his ass put on the bench. And then one of those Jags that I was talking about going to end up being the starter. You're going to see him holding the clipboard and having a ball cap on his head. And then how is that going to look? That a once MVP of the league and multi-time Pro Bowler and all this and the other got his ass benched. So before you get your ass benched, you can walk on out on your terms, and you got a probably lucrative broadcasting career in front of you like Tom Brady had, or at the very worst, you can join Pat McAfee more often on his show. So, as the group Black Sheep says, the choice is yours. Speaking of Chicago, man, Chicago actually put up a game. This was the Turkey Day game, and it was funny. I'm watching this game, and at first, the Lions were handling the Bears. At halftime, it was 16-0. After the third quarter, it was 23-7, and it was like, oh, okay, the Bears are doing Bears things. They're out of this game. But I will give Caleb Williams a hell of a lot of credit. That boy kept fighting. He kept fighting. He threw 3 touchdowns. He got his team back into the game. And then the end of the game was an absolute cluster, where there was about 37, 38 seconds on the clock. The Bears had a timeout to try and drive downfield to at least get in the field goal range and kick a field goal. And Matt Eberflus, the former coach at this point, uh, would not call the timeout. Caleb's trying to get all the players lined up and everything so they can get a pass off, and literally ran most of the time off the clock. So then all he could do is try to heave it towards the end zone to try to get it in for a touchdown, and it failed. And even if the guy had caught the ball, he was so far outside of that end zone, he would have got tackled before he got to the end zone, and it still wouldn't have mattered. And after I saw that, I literally looked at my brother and I said, he should get his ass fired for that. Jermaine looked at me and he said, oh, yeah. I said, there's no way. Then by the time I got home and was going scrolling through my social media threads, I see where the coach, Matt Eberflus, at his press conference defended the decision not to call the timeout and help his young quarterback, and said that, yeah, I think we did everything right. It just didn't work out. So I sent that clip over to my brother. I said, man, this dude is delusional. He definitely needs to get fired. And then within a couple of hours, Matt Eberflus was no more. They got rid of him. Now, I don't sit there and just, you know, push for people to get fired. I wouldn't want for nobody to push for me to get fired. But when you make a mistake like that and you have no sense of awareness to be able to say, you know what, that one's on me. Looking back at it, we should have called the timeout. And then if we couldn't have, and even if that was the last timeout and we still didn't get enough yards for a touchdown, as long as we got in the first down, we still would have had the option to come up and maybe spike the ball to stop the clock or something like that. But to sit there and know how long it normally takes to go from a play to resetting the ball to lining your players up, getting the ball uh, into a hiking position, that takes a little bit of time. And not to call that timeout was, I mean, it was criminal. But then after the game, to sit there at a press conference, look reporters straight in their damn face, like they ain't never watched a football game before, and say, "Oh no, we did everything we could. We did everything right." Were you at the same game that we were? So he had to go. What does that do for Caleb Williams and his development? It's to be determined. If I was up to the ownership, I would stipulate no matter who the coach is, they really need to keep Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator, around so that there's some continuity with Caleb Williams so that you don't end up with Justin Fields 2.0, new coordinators every year, and they're having to try to learn every year, and it stymies their growth. God knows that's what happened to Sam Darnold when he first came to the New York Jets. He had a new coordinator every year. God knows that's what happened to Baker Mayfield when he was in Cleveland. He had a new coordinator every damn year. It matters. It matters the voice that you keep hearing in the headset, in your helmet. It matters. So hopefully they don't set Caleb Williams up for failure by getting rid of everybody and then starting over. And then he has to learn new terminology, new this, new that, and it slows down his growth. Because he showed in that game that he can be that dude. but they need to lean into that and not put a whole lot of stumbling blocks in his way. And that could definitely happen. So the Lions, they escaped out of that one, and I'm gonna call it an escape. Because ugh, it it didn't look good after they came back like that. Some other scores: the Packers took care of the Dolphins 30-17. The Chiefs squeaked one out against the Raiders. Again, the Chiefs just played just a little bit better than their opposition, enough to win and keep on moving. Again, that caught them one time, and this is like the third game where it could have caught them again. Yeah. Well, for me, that 30 seconds, that whole offense was moving slow. Williams looking lost. I agree with that. But as a coach, if you see them not moving fast, looking lost, call the damn timeout and help him. He's a rookie. You still you still got to control the game management. How many times has your rookie been in that situation? You're the coach. You got to coach him. You see him, and look, here's the thing, Anthony. If you could look at the TV screen and see that, you mean to tell me the people on the sidelines couldn't see that? Now, maybe you didn't want to give up that timeout, but you know what? You can't you can't hold on to it. It doesn't do you any good. They left the game with a timeout in their pocket. Well, what good did that do? So if you see during that 30 seconds that the team looked like they're moving slow, they're discombobulated, the quarterback looks lost. Okay, y'all. The next play, we're gonna do a dig route, slant left, slant right, catch it on the corners, run out of bounds, and stop the clock. If they shut that off because they're gonna play for those edges, get something in the middle of the field, y'all all come up to the line real fast, and within 4 to 5 seconds, I'm gonna need y'all to spike that ball, and then we're gonna have either we'll be close enough for game time field goal, or we'll be a little bit closer to the end zone that when he heaves it to the end zone, it can actually get there. That's what a coach would do. Not go, damn, he looked lost out there. Why they ain't moving that fast? If only there was something I could do. Call the goddamn timeout. That's what you could do. So I agree with you. That is what it looked like. But you're the coach. You can look at the little guy in the zebra suit and go, just saying. That's what got your ass fired. Ain't nobody gonna say, well, Caleb looked lost out there. No. It's your job when you see your quarterback. Now, look, if it was another play any other time during the game and he got the play in late, got everybody lined up late, the play clock coming down 5, 4, 3, what do you normally do? You burn a timeout so you don't take a delay a game. So if you call a timeout so you wouldn't take a delay a game, you wouldn't call a timeout at the end of the game to try to help tie it up or win it? You see what I'm saying? That's crazy. So, yeah, he deserved that. He deserved to take that fire in. My God, that was crazy. I think that one of the biggest games last week too was on Sunday where the Texans played the Jaguars, and it wasn't about the Texans winning the game as much as it was about Aziz getting suspended for 3 games for the hit that he put on Trevor Lawrence. It was a terrible hit, and I've heard all week long people defending the hit and people criticizing the hit. It's a very controversial thing in a lot of ways. I don't think this hit was controversial. I think it was a terrible hit. I mean, he knocked his head off. He, but the problem is this: when quarterbacks give up their body and go into a slide, it puts a defensive player sometimes in a bad position because they have to somehow pull up. The quarterback draw was stupid. Where your running back at? Swift run with him. True. But when your quarterback gives up his body like that and the defensive guys coming at him full speed, a lot of defensive backs are going, what the hell is he supposed to do? He can't just yank his body out of the air. The problem is the technique. He leaned in too much with his arm and his body. He shot himself off like a projectile. And the guy had been warned before about this and it's unsportsmanlike conduct. So he's going to appeal the decision and everything, but I kind of agree with it that yes, something needs to be done. It, it's not just about protecting quarterbacks; it's just about player safety. Period. Football is a violent game. Yes, they know what they get into when they sign up to play it. That doesn't mean that it has to be reckless. It can be dangerous without being reckless. There's always going to be danger. You can be a firefighter. That's a dangerous job. You can be a policeman. That's a dangerous job. It doesn't mean that you just be reckless. And sometimes not being, even when you're not reckless, the dangers can be life changing. Um, but let's reduce that, not lean into that and just say, well, just because it's a dangerous game, these are the things that come with it. Nah, some of it doesn't. Some of it is the choice. And I think Aziz made a choice that he was going to try to knock Trevor Lawrence's head off. Now, some people say, well, he ain't mean it like that. Well, yeah, but sometimes your actions, you got to pay for your actions, not your intentions. Um, and I think that's what ended up happening. But that game was really clouded by that one play than the fact that the Jaguars actually win that game. How can you stop a 240-pound running fast that he did and didn't win it? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you can't. But Anthony, I've said that a lot of times about when they're rushing the damn quarterback and they call roughing the passer. Like I'm coming at this guy full speed. He barely gets the ball out of his hands, and somehow I'm supposed to just tap him gently. Now they're trying to teach these guys how to tackle him, but don't put all your weight on him because you can get a flag for that. Well, how much perspective is it for a referee to know whether you're putting all your weight on him? And what's the damn difference? You knocked him to the ground. And if he ran a quarterback sneak and there's five guys on him, I damn sure know all their weight is on top of him. What's the difference? I think they've gotten a little crazy with some of these hits, or well, you can hit them below here but above there. It's like, yo, you know what? When he's moving, that little box that you've given me moves too. And I may not be always able to hit that box, and not because of my fault, but because of the way this guy's moving. If he crouches, if he jumps up in the air, it shifts that target box. So, yes, I agree with you. I don't know how defensive players can always keep themselves out of harm's way of getting that flag because a lot of it has nothing to do with them, and that's going to make it even harder. So, I agree with you on that. That's a kind of touchy subject too, because yeah, defensive players when they see that they're like, well, wait a minute, and then John Runyon is the one now working for the NFL that hands out the fine, and they're like, well, hold up, who are you to sit there and do that when you had a couple of them outside of the line plays too, and now you sitting there handing out suspensions and fines and stuff. That just kind of seemed like the pot calling the kettle black. So there's a little bit of resentment from the players from that too. The messenger just doesn't really seem to line up with the message that you're giving when you have John Runyon. And if you don't know who John Runyon is, Google it, watch some YouTube videos, and you'll see what I mean. That that's probably not the one that you want delivering the message. That'd be like in the NBA, Dennis Rodman sending somebody suspensions for unsportsmanlike conduct, or Rasheed Wallace, or no. I'll give you younger folks a better one. That'd be like Draymond Green retiring, working for the NBA, and sending my boy for the Sixers, Embiid, a letter and saying, yeah, unsportsmanlike conduct, we're gonna have to suspend you. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be, well, did he deserve it? It'd be like, yeah, but it came from Draymond Green. Draymond? Yeah. So that would kind of be crazy. So that's kind of the same as the whole John Runyon thing. It's like, wait a minute, ooh, the same that one? Hmm, okay. Anywho's, that's a look at the games that we had last week. Now we got a full set of games this week. No Black Friday games, but we have a game tomorrow that's going to be a huge, huge game. It's going to be Amazon Prime. The Packers uh, going to Detroit to face the Lions. This is going to be a good game. We will again get to see if the Lions are going to kind of somewhat rebound from the Chicago game where they had the game in hand and kind of took their foot off the gas. The Packers will be without Romeo Dobbs. I saw him on the injured list. Jordan Love will be there to play, though. So we'll have to really see if the Packers are really going to be able to match the offense of the Lions. I think they will. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the total points scored in this game are going to be well over 7, whether it is 35 to 38, 42 to 37. It's going to be something like that. I bet you. If Randall was here, I know he would tell me that the game he gonna watch is almost as a rematch game of 2 weeks ago, where the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers play. Where now the Browns have to come to the Steel City and get that W. And this time, I think the results are going to be different, unless there's 8 inches of snow on the ground. But I do see the Steelers winning that game. I think Russell Wilson. I don't think that last game was a fluke. I think that is just him getting more and more comfortable with the offense and with the weapons around him. Hyde Smith may be playing back in this game to help Watt. That's only gonna uh, make it even better for the Steelers. I got the Steelers winning that game. I got the Lions winning the game on Thursday. Sunday, you've got the Saints and the Giants, uh, and it's in New York, but the Giants just look totally discombobulated. I'm gonna give it to the Saints because Derek Carr. I trust Derek Carr more than I trust DeVito or Drew Lock. Um, Jets at the Dolphins. This is in Miami. I trust Tua more than I trust Aaron Rodgers. That was the easy one. The Jaguars at the Titans. Trevor Lawrence isn't playing, I don't think. And even if he did, I would still give it to the Titans with Will Levis and those guys there. Tony Pollard's going to probably have a good day rushing on the ground as a result of the fact that I think that the pass will set up the run. A real interesting game is going to be the Falcons and the Vikings, only because it's going to be um, Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota to face his former team. The problem is that Kirk Cousins looked like total trash in the last game, and the Vikings defense is probably going to continue to make him look like trash. And Sam Darnold is playing in such a way that for the first time ever, I'm going to say I trust Sam Darnold more than I trust Kirk Cousins. Um, my Panthers go and visit my Eagles. I grew up an Eagles fan, became a Panthers fan once the Panthers came to Charlotte. It's no fun for me in this game, but fly, Eagles, fly. The Raiders are at the Buccaneers. The Raiders look like total garbage. I need the Raiders to beat the Buccaneers so my Panthers have a chance, but I just don't see it. The Raiders are utter mess too. I think this is going to be a good home win for the Buccaneers as well. You got now. This is a game that's going to be interesting, and I wouldn't have thought that before. But you got the Seahawks and the Cardinals. I think the Seahawks. No, I'm sorry. I think the Cardinals are actually going to walk away with this win. They're not playing in Seattle. The Cardinals have done very well at home. Kyler Murray has taken care of the ball. He's played exceptionally well. Him and Marvin Harrison Jr. continue to get on the same page, and I think that combination is going to have a big day on Sunday. Here's one that I didn't think I would say. The Bears at the 49ers. Which is the Bears at the 49ers. The Bears. Um, the Bills at the Rams. God, Brad, I hope you're not listening. The Bills. And here's a good one. Chargers at the Chiefs. I don't trust the Chargers just yet. I'm gonna give it to the Chiefs at home. And finally, your Monday night football game is going to be the Bengals against the Cowboys. Monday night football. Um, I think that Bengals defense is gonna get after Cooper Rush. I do. And I think the Bengals are gonna win. The Bengals now have no pressure because they're not gonna make the playoffs. And I think that's gonna bode well bad for Dallas. They just gonna come into Jerry's world and whoop that ass. I don't even think it's gonna be close. I think they're gonna beat them by 22 points. Um, but we will see. Those are all the games that we got coming on next week. I hope y'all got out of your turkey comas and everything and are doing okay. But in any event, we will definitely see y'all again next week. Just a programming note: the week of Christmas. Christmas is on a Wednesday. The show is on a Wednesday. Guess what? There's no show that week. And we will definitely recap those 2 weeks the following week. Um, to catch back up. But just to let y'all know, not that y'all would have tried to tune in on Christmas. I don't think any of y'all that loyal yet. That you come in on Christmas and we're not here. And be like, what happened to y'all? I was waiting around. You never came on. So anyway, I hope y'all are safe and everything out there. We will be back next week. Randall should be back next week as well. But we'll sign off and we will see y'all again next week. Y'all stay safe out there.